Thank you for joining us today for Old Testament Theology Daily. Unfortunately, Mark wasn't able to make it to the show today, but we have a special guest, flew in today, Walter C. Kaiser Jr. himself, which, by happenstance, was actually our topic of discussion for today. So instead of just biography, I'll actually interview the man face to face.
Hello.
So, thank you for joining us, Dr. Kaiser.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. So, tell me about yourself, about your childhood.
Well, you see, audience, I was born on April 11, 1933, in Fulcroft, Pennsylvania, to Walter and Estelle Kaiser. I am the oldest of 6 children, which in fact grew up on a farm, and I attended a local independent fundamental church in the community.
So, when did you first gain your interest in the Old Testament, Dr. Kaiser?
Well, as a matter of fact, I was in high school. I can't remember exactly what year, but I was sitting down in my seat, and I remember my teacher talking about evolution, and I remember kind of getting a little frustrated because she was debunking the Old Testament and just kind of went on with her own beliefs. So I raised my hand, and she kindly said that I could respond with a 40-page paper describing my faith and describing the Old Testament and how I thought creation came about.
And this teacher, was this an English teacher, science teacher?
Biology teacher.
Biology.
Yeah, biology teacher, yes.
Very understandable. So tell me about where you went to college and what you studied while you were there.
Well, I attended Wheaton College in 1951, and I studied Bible, philosophy, and Greek.
And how did you act on this desire of yours to take your passion greater than just undergraduate studies?
Well, after attending Wheaton College and highly enjoying that experience, I decided to attend the Graduate School of Theology. And I studied Old Testament, Hebrew, and then that's what I studied at Wheaton, and I eventually received my PhD from Brandeis University.
Very interesting, very interesting. Well, thank you, Dr. Kaiser, for sharing a little bit about your personal life and your childhood with us. Now, let's shift gears and talk about your methodology. Is there a distinctive methodology that you like to follow?
Well, yes, there is actually. And I've asked myself a lot of questions when reading the text, but I believe there is an inner, persistent, distinctive characteristic theme that marks off the central concern for the Old Testament. I believe the Old Testament authors had a conscious, continuous stream of events, meanings, and ideas which preceded them.
And do you have a unique personal method when reading the Old Testament?
Yes, I would like to say so. I have a critical placement of interpretive statements, which helps one read the Old Testament with more insight. Here are a couple keys to go along with what I just said. The first would be, frequency of repetition of the ideas that are happening in the Old Testament, the reoccurrence of phrases or terms that begin to take a technical status, the use of categories of assertions previously used that easily lend themselves to a description of a new stage in the program of history, and the organizing standard by which people, places, and ideas were marked for approval, like contrast, inclusion, and future and present significance.
Right.
Yeah, I just feel like that brings upon a brighter light to the scripture if you're looking for, reoccurring themes, or repetition of terms and ideas throughout the biblical text, as Michelson would say.
Right. If you could summarize the Old Testament in 2 words, what would they be?
Well, through the midst of all this theology going on in the Old Testament, I would point it out in 2 words: promise and blessings. The main scripture that comes to mind is Exodus 6:7. I will be your God, and you shall be my people. And then I will dwell in the midst of you. That's a key verse I read, and it really stands out to me. And it kind of explains the whole Old Testament. I think that's a very powerful scripture because that's God's plan. It was introduced in Genesis, and then also it was done out through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Thank you. Is there any last closing methodological tidbit you'd like to tell us?
Yes, there is actually. Also, when reading the text, the Israelites were a chosen group, a special group that God had chosen, but God is not just for them. God is for everyone. Through their seed, the rest of the world can get to know Christ, or God. That's New Testament. And God promises them through, well, like I said, promise again, and blessing. God promises that He will be a God for them and do something for all people, all nations, and nature for a divine purpose. Yeah, that's basically my last words.
Well, thank you. That is a very, very interesting methodology. All right, now, before we go, Dr. Kaiser, there's one last question I would like to ask, and I'm sure the audience is interested.
Right.
When you're not teaching or advising over a college, speaking, writing books, what do you spend your free time doing?
Well, I'll tell you what, class. I love going home, in Wisconsin, is kicking it with the family. When I'm not speaking or doing anything else, that's what I love doing. My real passion is with my family. I'm an avid farmer, and I love ride my John Deere. That's basically it.
Sounds fun. You fit the part. You're a family man. I like that.
Yes, sir. Love it.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today.
Thank you very much, class. It's been a pleasure.
Tune in next week for Old Testament Theology Daily, where we interview Marty Allen Michelson, a new, young, and upcoming theologian, much like Dr. Kaiser here.
Right.
And a very interesting spirit. So
don't expect to get your answers asked, though. That's for dang sure.
You will not want to miss that. Thank you for joining us.
All right.
Being here today.
It's been a pleasure.
Kaiser.